Hey, welcome to another episode of Rock and Recovery. Today, again, we have another person, Johnny D, a friend of mine. He's going to tell his recovery story. And here we go. Johnny, how's it
Hey,
going?
bud. It's all right. We gotta work on getting you a theme song though.
Oh, I know. I don't know what kind of theme song you want, though. Honestly, whatever works. It might be like corn. I'm thinking some kind of corn song.
All right. Just some sort of intro song for you. We'll think of something.
Absolutely. So,
But
we're going to talk about your story, your recovery story, your whatever inspirational wisdom you have. Are you ready?
well, I'm ready. Here we go. My name is John. I am an alcoholic. I've my sobriety date. I don't remember the exact date, but it was 3 something of 2005. When I finally heard the pop, and that was the sound of my head coming out of my ass. I was in a criminal thinking house in Kenosha after I got out of prison, and it was about a month and a half in, and I'm kind of blessed I got into that spot because I still had the mentality, right? I had the criminal mentality. I had the user mentality. I didn't stop. People often ask, well, why don't you use your time that you used in prison as clean time? It wasn't clean. I'm sure you know as well as I do. If you had the means, you could get whatever you wanted.
It was
And
so
and
more
and
readily available then than I didn't have to look for it in prison.
no, you were there. It was right there. If you had it, you could get it. It was amazing. But but no, there was a couple of people there. It was an AA based house. A lot of people that were counselors there were in AA, so they had the time too. But they saved me from myself on a couple of occasions. But when I heard that loud pop, I remember I was walking from one room to the next, and there was just a voice in my head. I don't know who it was. I don't know what it was. It wasn't me. And it just said to me, John, you never have to use again. And it was an amazing feeling. And so much so, it was like a burden. And was lifted off my shoulders. And I call that the moment that the desire or the impulse to use was lifted. It was gone. And it was tested. Well, anyway, I had that feeling, and it hit me so hard that I actually cried for the first time in probably 30 years at that time. And I cried for a good 15, 20 minutes, so much so, visibly sobbing, that the guys that were there were like, "Oh man, are you all right? What's going on?" And I had no idea, until later. Um, and so that's when that moment happened. Um, and it was tested about 3 months in. You could go out, meaning you could take another guy who hadn't been there quite as long, and if they needed to go do something, you'd escort them out. Well, a guy from there led me over to a bar, basically a VHW hall, and he wanted to have an NA beer. Well, he was talking to the people there because he had been there 100 times before. I don't think he was an alcoholic. He just had some troubles. But you should have seen me, Jay. I'm sitting at a bar 3 months in, and I'm shaking, visibly shaking. And it was the first time that's ever happened to me. And the guy looked at me and he goes, John, you all right? And I said, no. The guy goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he got me out of there. But I didn't. It wasn't like I wanted to use. It's not as if I wanted to have a drink or anything. But it was just the ambiance. It had been the first time I had been in a bar, and I swore from that time forward, for some time, I wasn't going to go into a place that was, had a bar or anything hooked up to that. So I didn't. Um, my childhood was pretty normal. I grew up middle class. Nobody in the house drank. Nobody in the house used drugs, so far as I know. In fact, I can go as far as saying I lived with my dad and my grandma, and that would have been my dad's mom. We had bought my grandma a bottle of brandy, big bottle of brandy, um, and she used it for her pain, literally. And I say that because when I gave it to her, I actually had thought about it years later, and I happened to look. I went into her room for something, and I happened to look down, and there was that bottle with about an inch of dust on it and about half gone. So drinking wasn't a thing. Eventually I did take the bottle, by the way. So, and I go. I think my dad was maybe drunk one time that I can remember, but I'm not exactly sure the scenario or
So
what
what led
happened there.
you
So
down the
I didn't
path?
grow up. I didn't. Well, it wasn't around me, right?
Right. So
Um,
what led you down the path to choosing alcohol?
I never felt as though I belonged. And I'm not sure why that was, because as a kid, I was a pretty sociable person. I was outgoing. I could do things on my own. I could, we lived in the county, so not in the city, so I could walk down the road. I was in a community where everybody knew everybody, even if they didn't know them. You'd seen them a million times, even if you never talked to them. So I could go. I'm not, I just never felt as though I belonged. And when I got into school, I felt as though I was an outsider. And apparently, I had problems. According to the school, I had problems. Emotionally disturbed, they called it. So much so they put me into an ED class for emotionally disturbed, and and ironically enough, that's where I met the first person I would get high with. That's the where I met the first person I would eventually drink with. What actually, my first drink, I think I drank before I got high. And what had happened was I was in my dad would take me to work with him. I'm getting to the point here, Jay, I swear. He took me to work with him once in a while. Would give my grandma a break so she could go out and do her things that she needed to do. And in the back room of he worked in a TV repair shop. That should age me well. Um, they had a pretty big room back there with a refrigerator, and in the refrigerator was either a 6-pack of Blatz or Schlitz. I don't remember which it was, but it was one of the two. And it intrigued me, so I was maybe 11 or 12, so I grabbed it. I grabbed one and I scurried into the bathroom and I cracked it. And of course, you want to down it as quickly as possible. And I did, I had all the fizzy stuff. I had to do about half and then get back, get my breath and get the rest. Well, it gave me a buzz.
That
And,
was.
and at that moment, it was, ah,
Yeah. Speaking of that, my grandpa, my mom will recall this, but my grandpa, old school Italian, he had one of those old milk machines still, the like we had in prison, that pull the
mhm,
handle, milk comes out, you have to put the bags in or whatever. And
yeah.
right in front of that, he had like 40 cases of beer. And they threw a party every year, a big, huge Italian party for the whole community. Everybody showed up, but there was 40, 50 cases of beer, and it was all Budweiser. Where Colorado is all Budweiser or Coors. And I remember I stayed with my grandpa a lot, so I remember that. And I never, you know what? I never touched his alcohol. Never. That was my grandpa's. I there's not saying I didn't drink it, but because he would crack one, my uncles would crack one, whoever. Like, here, Jay, drink this. Okay, yeah, absolutely. I remember going to the bar with my uncle. I think it was my uncle Buddy or my uncle Ted at a young age. I remember that. I remember those things. It's crazy.
Well, the place I grew up, there was two bars across the street, and one was a biker bar, and the other one was kind of the where the old farts would hang out, I guess you could say. And I'll never. It's not a trigger for me, but it clicked something in my head because I remember walking past the bar, and you could smell the smell of stale cigarettes and beer, and that always has stuck with me as an excitement, as interesting, because you would hear obviously from the biker bar on most weekend nights, you'd hear music, people laughing, throwing horseshoes, doing their thing. And that just, it seemed like an exciting time, you know? So growing up in that neighborhood, I eventually hooked up with the wrong people, as it were, and got introduced to drugs and alcohol fairly early, and never knowing why I was depressed or what made me depressed. That was always my release. If I binge drinked a lot when I was young, and I blacked out a lot when I was young. Um, but it was always that first drink that always something clicked in my head where it was like, I found my solution to my problem. And so as time went on, things got worse and never got better. I mean, at the age of 16 or 17, I had found that I thought I could never do anything right in anybody's eyes. So I thought, well, I think I should just die. I should just unalive myself. So one night I was drunk and I went home and grabbed a bottle of aspirin. Probably the worst way to do it, by the way, is come to find out. And I downed them. I passed out. I woke up in the morning in a haze, threw up all of them, and then was talking to my grandma, telling her what I just did, and got had called the cops on myself pretty much, and got sent to a place out near where I lived. And I'll never forget the man who I was talking to, and he says, I was like 16 or 17, but it made an impression. And he says to me, you know, you're so young, you know, why do you want to become a statistic? Don't become a statistic. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be a statistic. Who wants to be a statistic? So I decided to slowly poison myself with the alcohol over time, and it just got progressively worse and worse. The solution turned into a problem, and my problems were me, but my solution was the alcohol, which loosens up your inhibitions a lot, right? So anyway, when I found out that I was on probation and parole, some sort of probation parole, since I was 13, and later on when I was 20 something, my probation officer says, why don't you go see a shrink for your alcohol, you know, usage? And I thought, well, you know, she's my probation officer, I better listen. I don't want to sit in jail.
Right.
So I did. And she made me come up with a list. It was kind of a 4-step, but what it was you had a yellow legal page. She gave it to me, and she says, put a line down the middle and put the people on the left are the people you care for or have some sort of care for, and then on the right that you don't have as much care for. So I put my grandma, my dad, some other people, and then some people on the right. And she looks at the list and says, where's your mom? Well, the shields rose, defense, you know, shields up. Get the torpedoes ready. We're about ready to fire. And I got defensive. And so she says, why don't you write her a letter? So I did. I didn't know how. I never met my mom. So I was like, what am I going to say to somebody I never met? And as it turns out, she says, don't do it high. Don't do it drunk. Do it sober. You know, just do it. All right, so I did. And the only thing, Jay, that I had a yellow legal pad. You know, the big yellow legal pads you get? I started, the only thing I remember writing is, Dear Mom, I don't know what I'm going to tell you, but I'm supposed to write you a letter. At the end of it, I filled up 3 whole sheets of that, both front and back, 3.5 sheets. And at the end of it, I didn't rip it up, but I set it aside and I cried. And I cried for 3 days, Jay. I cried. As it turns out, I have abandonment issues. I never trusted women. I never could figure out why women didn't like me. I couldn't connect. and alcohol played a role in that because, like I said, you lose inhibitions, you lose, common sense in a lot of cases. So I used women for sex. I'd use women for drugs. I'd use women for alcohol. I'd use women just to try to find that mom thing, in a lot of cases. Well, time goes on, and eventually I would eventually kick my own ass and end up in prison for some stupid shit that I honestly would rather not say what it is, but let's just say I'll never do it again. It's the biggest reason why I quit drinking. And yeah, it'll always be in my head. And I just know now that I'm not drinking, I'm a better person for not drinking. Um, and all right, let's move on. When I got sober and decided to finally get onto my bike and ride, so to speak, and do the steps, a lot of the steps were so freeing for me because I'm glad I found a sponsor that would kick my ass. I needed a sponsor that would punch me in the face and kick my ass and tell me I'm not doing things right. And because I had been doing them my way for so long, but my best thinking put me in prison. So how well is that going to work for me?
Right.
I
So prison wasn't even your rock bottom.
No. Well, yes and no. It was more in my head. It was more in my head. Because I was a loner, and I still am. I'm a, what do they call it? I
Anti.
internalize a lot of things.
Oh, okay.
I rationalize a lot of things. A rational thinker, I think they call it. Um, so I found a sponsor that was there's a group out here called the Outcast. They're a biker MC motorcycle club, but they're all sober. And I thought, perfect. That's who I need. I need to find somebody who's going to help me. And I did. And I was so excited about getting my 4-step done. I actually had it done before we had the 4-step. Got to the 4-step in the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. And I gave it to him. I was so excited. And he looked at me and he looked at it and he looked at me and he looked at it and he looked at me and says, "You're going to have to do this again. You're not even close." I said, "Oh, God damn it." I brought it down to what I thought was the most important things. And he says, "No, no, no, no.
All of it.
All of it.
Don't hold back.
And don't hold back." And I didn't. And, and what I learned later on is when you do a 4-step, how clean do you want to be? You're only as clean as your deepest, darkest secret. And I got everything out, Jay. I got everything out. And it was just, huh?
Go ahead.
And it was just so go ahead.
Your turn. I'm stopping.
Okay. But it's just so you get all this shit out, and it's fear based, right? A lot of your things are fear based. What's going to happen? What's not going to happen? Are these people not going to like me? And at the end of the day, when you get all this shit out, you see, at least for me, most of it was fear based. Most of it was anger issues. Most of it was abandonment issues. And then,
So, Johnny, really, was it just the fear of not wanting to bring up the past? Was it the fear of ridicule? Was it fear of not wanting to confront face it?
what are you gonna think of me? What are you? How are you gonna look at me? And this is, how are you gonna think of me? Me.
Right.
Because I still don't have a lot of friends, but the friends I do have we talk about everything, and it's like I said, I got less friends than I can count on my hands, 2, maybe 3 that I can spill everything out to, and they'll be critical about me. Why are you like this? Why are you thinking about this? What's going on? All right, here's some advice.
Right.
and it's so everything the whole steps are freeing is what it's about. It's about getting the wreckage of your past behind you and moving forward. It took me, and I was just talking to one of our friends about this too, about some of my past and saying, when I, in sobriety, it took me a while to get going, right? I had them $8 an hour jobs. I had them 9, 10, 11, 12 hour an hour jobs. I was holding myself back because of my past. How are these people going to see me? How are they going to perceive me? Are they going to like me? I've lost jobs because of my past, right? I didn't get hired because of my past.
Absolutely.
And but eventually, and it took, like I was saying to Mel, it took me 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years before somebody looked at me and said, "You're worth it. Let's give this guy a shot." And you know, and it was off to the races. I don't have the perfect job, but I have a great job. And the point is because I've worked through my past. I've worked through a lot of my issues. I'm still an asshole. I'm still a prick. I can still be a son of a bitch. I'm sarcastic as hell. I use it to my advantage. I use it for the greater good
Well, and
instead of evil.
too, though, you can use it as defense too, a real easy defense, you know,
Oh
because
yeah,
if somebody can't see through that, then they're not meant to be around anyway. If somebody can't see
it's
through,
true.
you know, that sarcastic, dry wit type of humor, you know, you're not gonna, they're not gonna be able to connect with you anyway.
And there are another amazing thing about TikTok is you'll meet people that can see through your bullshit or that have that same sarcastic attitude and can feed that. You can feed off of that, and you can build a friendships off of that too. It's pretty wild about how TikTok has opened that up in me and in a couple of people. I'm still guarded a lot. But I try to be as open, as honest as I possibly can. You know, there's been some debates that I've been in, good, healthy debates too, not argument and shouting over each other, trying to get your point across that, am I an alcoholic? I've been sober 21 years now. Am I still an alcoholic? Well, do I have to run around with that name nowadays? And yes, I think I do, only because how close am I to my next drink? I have to put myself on point a lot. How close am I to that next drink? I mean, I may be sober for 20 years. I may have helped people get sober or achieve sobriety. I've watched people die in sobriety. I've watched, how close am I? And I got to think about that a lot
My
because
question,
if
you know, is are we really cured though? If I'm an addict, can I really am I really cured of this disease as an addict? Yes, my thinking is new. Yes, I can think things through still, but I know my drug of choice. If I pick it up and if I want it, I'm not going to stop. That's the addict part right there. I'm not going to stop until I hit below rock bottom again, and it's going to be hard because it's it's just I don't think there's a cure for addiction per se. There's a cure for the thinking and the coping, but I don't think there's one for the actual addiction, being an addict.
well, we find ways of coping with what we couldn't cope with before because our 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 drug, our alcohol was the solution to the problem, right? That moment, that you take that hit, you take that drink, you take that shot. It's that everything's gone. Everything I can forget for a while. You know what I'm saying? But it never goes away, right? And as soon as you come down, we always try to achieve that apex again. So we find an easier, softer way, and along the way, it's a bumpy road, right?
Right.
Um, Can we ever get rid of? No, I don't think we can, but we can find ways around not using. We can find ways of coping with our challenges in ways that we never thought possible. You know, how often when I was using would I sit with a problem and think, what can I do? What can I do? How many times have I looked in the mirror when I was drunk or high or on something and going, what am I doing? You know, how do I get out of this?
Around you, yeah.
How do I do this? You know, and the program for me, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous was the way of doing that. That was my escape. You know, I don't need when something goes wrong in my using days. If something went wrong, of course it went wrong. Now I should go use. But I've always had the excuse, right?
Well, we
There's a
wind up.
well, it's a beautiful day. It's raining out. It's not raining out. It's snowing out. It's cold out. It's hot out. It's
I need to use the bathroom.
I need to use the bathroom. Better get my fix. God damn it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, you know, but there are easier and softer ways now that I've found, and it's a bumpy road to get there, right? It's facing ourselves, it's facing our demons and getting past our demons. And you've heard me say this before, and I will always shout this from the rooftops: AANAOANEA is not the end all be all, right? Because a lot of us, male and female, have been through some shit that AA can't cure, and therapy is always an option. Always. Don't ever think it isn't.
What does recovery look like for you? What do you do like daily? What keeps your mind occupied and your thoughts from turning to going to, hey, let's cope like we used to?
Well, I have plans, if that makes sense. I have goals. I have aspirations. You know, I'm 53. I want to be able to retire when I'm 65. You know, that's my goal. And that may seem nominal to normies, right? That may seem something like, well, I always went for that. I never did, Jay, and maybe you're the same way. I didn't start thinking, what am I going to do about the future till I got out when I was 34, 35 years old. What am I going to do? And I'm sure you can relate to this. When I got out of prison, I had my prison clothes, my jeans, my shoes, my t-shirt, my underwear, my socks, and a bag of shit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
I didn't have. I had my dad. My grandma had died while I was in prison. I burnt my bridges 3, 4 times. I didn't have nothing else. You know, and I'm sure you can. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So I had to build from zero. My gratitude is so off the charts. Every day is an adventure. Every day is new. Even after 20 years, I mean, we can get stagnant after a while, and that's where the program comes in, and helping one alcoholic or one addict helping another alcoholic, another addict. It keeps it new. It keeps you grounded, because, but for the grace of God, there goes I with the guy with one day again. You know, there goes me walking down the street panhandling for my next beer, for my next drug.
Absolutely.
You know,
When in the height of our addiction, we would give everything away for it. I know I would. I was talking about it earlier this morning with somebody, with Miranda. We would freaking sell ourselves almost, you know, to, for me it was meth, and I would sell my soul almost for that shit. You know, I never went that
oh hell
far
yeah.
as well of, but I've lost everything. I gotten shit back. But what do I really have to show from active addiction that I've still got with me now, other than scars and tattoos? Nothing.
Pretty much
Nothing.
nothing. I
Every single tattoo I've
There's
got,
just
was in prison, which I was in prison for doing drugs and being in the drug game. So every single tattoo I've got comes from prison. Every single one. So I've got a whole long history of life, a history on me, showing that, hey, yeah, I'm a master fuck up.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't. It was. I remember some. I can't remember what the situation was or where it was, but somebody asked me. He goes, and this is while I was still using, and he asked me. He goes, what are you going to do with the future? And I says, I don't know. I came into this world with nothing. I'm going to leave with nothing. Little did I know that was actually a biblical thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to get into the Bible or nothing like that. But no, and so I always felt if I didn't have anything, how can I lose anything? You know, if I had just exactly what I needed, I wouldn't have to worry about losing something else. And I think that may have strung back to abandonment issues again. If you don't have something, you can't lose it, right?
Absolutely.
You know, but
You know, when we
think
do get those things, we want to hold on to them so bad. When we start now, you know, we want. That's why a lot of addicts. I hate to say this because I don't want to be labeled as that either, but become hoarders. We hoard stuff because we don't want to lose it. Whether that be people, whether that be connections, whether that be just whatever, we turn into kind of like a hoarder mentality because we don't want to lose it now, you know?
it's true. And but it's kind of nice to be able to have stuff again. And stuff at all. And but stuff isn't life, you know. I mean, here's the thing. I told you what I got out of prison with nothing. I have since gotten a new car, I've gotten a motorcycle, I've gotten a house, I've gotten married, and I've gotten the best thing of all, I got my son. You know, and I got to watch him grow up. He's 18 now. So he's never seen me use, knock on wood. Um, he's never gotten to see that side of me. And these are things that, and I know a lot of people that have just practically everybody, it seems, have gone through life with their kids. And I don't know, I'm at a loss for words now, but it just seems, you asked me what keeps me sober, and it's just life. You know, I don't want to forget anymore. I don't want to forget that I'm alive. I don't want to keep bashing my head against that wall anymore.
No,
I don't want to. I want to feel. I want to experience. I want to know what it's like to have this range of emotions that I've suppressed for years, decades now. You know,
so
I want all that now.
I know we've all gone through good and bad days. What is a bad day for you? What is a bad day and how do you cope with it now? Now,
Now it's
compared to early sobriety recovery till now,
well,
how do you change? What have you changed?
like any good addict, I can hold on to a grudge.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I can hold on to a resentment. What I do now is a 10 step on a daily basis. A 10 step. Can he continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it? And promptly for me could take up to 2 or 3 days, but it's better than holding that. It's better than holding that resentment, because for me a lot of that is old habit. A lot of that is old ways of thinking, old habits. It's the way I coped with it. Hold on to it, stuff it, knock it down, bury it. Don't ever show it. Nowadays, it's easier to express, and it comes with time. Everything gets easier with time. The more you do something, the easier it gets.
So you ever have those
Right?
like in like early recovery or even now that you're talking about something that those emotions come out and all of a sudden it might be dusty in the air or I've got allergies or something because all of a sudden the spirit starts leaking over random stupid stuff too. All of a sudden you see something that should be funny and it's bringing a tear to your eye, and it's like, why am I freaking crying right now? This is retarded. This is this is dumb. Why am I why am I crying right now? You know, and it's
But
the ability to feel. Though. For me, it's just I get joy out of being able to express that emotion now.
isn't that wild? I mean, something you've held back on, and I know you talk about your mom and you love her dearly, and that's something. I mean, you're the ability to reconnect, the ability to build a relationship again with somebody who you never thought you would be able to again. The ability to open up, the ability to say freely what's on your mind to somebody about anything is amazing. Holding back is just, it seems wrong. It just now, because before we could stuff everything and to let things go. A bad day for me, like I could say, could last a few minutes. It could last a few days, but it's just so much easier to let go of. It's so much easier to express now. Instead of using anger, instead of using hostility as the coping mechanism, now it's that whole range of emotion. You
Yeah,
know, I feel sad, I feel upset, I feel angry, I feel
and know
happy, I feel
and being able to process it and know what you know the situation is that's making me feel
hmm
things, and then the connections now, the friends, the connections I have are so much more meaningful, now they're it's quality instead of quantity, because back in the day it's like, oh, let's see, how many people do I know? Ooh, big deal. Now it's like, I know 3 people. Yes. Thank
yes. Well, isn't it wild that you can, you know, how often do we do this? You go up to somebody, an acquaintance or somebody, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great, or I'm doing okay. And now you can go up, you make these connections to the point where if I see you, Jay, hey, how you doing, bud? And you look at me and go, I'm all right.
yeah. Yeah.
Are you? You know, what's going on? What's up? You know, here, I'm here. What's up? You know, what's going on? And we can do this now, where before that was considered gay. Can I say that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not in a bad
I know.
way, but I'm
Right.
I'm just
And
saying,
you know,
it
the
was
shame
considered wrong.
frowned upon, for somebody.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the thing, and we can be vulnerable and know we're and be open with that person and our quality people, and not get judged for it because they probably went through the same type of shit at one point in time, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing how, and a lot of people don't know it, but just speaking your story, just saying what happened in your life after being sober for, a month, a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 10 years. If you stick around long enough, you'll hear somebody tell their story and go, "Oh my God, that's my story."
Yeah.
Um, and you'll be able to connect in a way. I met me and my wife go to open speaker meetings when I have off on weekends on Saturday over at our local Alano. And a guy last Saturday, not this last Saturday, but the Saturday before, was talking, and he resonated. He resonated with me, this guy. His name is Paul. He was talking about, after decades of recovery, how the program has changed, how the steps have changed, have a new meaning. Let me look at this real quick. He was talking about step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to the alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. And the way he was I can't describe it because I don't quite understand it yet, but he was describing how the principles are now different because he'd been sober for so long. And Jay, I went up to this guy after the meeting and I says, you know, you have something I want. Does this sound familiar? You have something I want. And early on in recovery, it seemed like everybody had something I wanted, right? Because they had sobriety, they had long-term sobriety. Now, that doesn't mean people with 10, 12 years didn't go back out and use. I've seen that all the time. But the point is, they had something I wanted. And after 20 something years, this guy resonated with me from what he was saying so much. I want what he has again, and it's brand new, you know.
Right.
It's new again, and it's so awesome to be able to be open enough to learn something new, right? An old dog can learn new tricks if you're willing to do so, right?
If you're willing to,
Um,
if you're ready and willing to learn. I, I mean,
exactly.
and like one of the people that we both know, Curtis and you, and you're just you've got so much longer in sobriety than me, and it's like, well, why is he saying thank you to me? I didn't tell him nothing that he didn't know. It's like you might not have known it, but you didn't remember you knew it. You know,
Well, it's not that, it's perspective. It's all about perspective.
yeah,
I mean, the guy that comes in with a day, or the guy that comes in from a relapse, teaches me that there's nothing new out there. You know, the guy that we both know that went back out, it nothing changed.
nothing
You
changed.
know,
Nothing
nothing
changed.
changed. But the perspective is different. You know, he sat back and realized, oh man, you know, I did wrong. I got to get on my horse again. And but for the grace of God, there goes I.
Right.
Um,
At least he was
but
he instead of it being a week long or a month long or a year long thing, it was an overnight, maybe a 2-day thing, maybe a day thing, and then instead of making it last longer. So he did get something out of it. He did change a lot,
right,
you know, and that's the whole thing is we do change. You know, I know because I've watched it in people. I've watched them change over the last however long, 14 months, almost 15 months. I've watched people change. I've watched myself change. I've watched other people that I talk to daily change. So all those people out there that there's he's not changing, he's just the same old Jay. Yeah, I'm the same old Jay with new tools and a better attitude. Damn straight, you know.
well, that's the point of changing playmates and playgrounds too, right? Because if you are new in recovery and you're still hanging out with the same people, you're going to have that same mentality, and
Yes,
nothing's going to change. You're just going to hear the same things over and over again, and you're going to go and you're going to think I would think in my head, well, what is the difference, you know? But hanging around with people in recovery, with the mindset of not wanting to ever use again, now all of a sudden I've opened up a world to where people are saying, no, I don't have to use over this anymore. And the way you look at things, Jay, are different from the way I may look at things. So if I keep that open mind to that, I may say, oh my God, I hadn't thought of it that way.
yeah.
Thank you. You know, um, people like Craig over in the UK, I love the way he talks. He's so eloquent. It just pisses me off how
Me
eloquent he
too.
is.
Me too. It really friggin' I'm really mad at him right now just because of that.
You jerk. No, he's an awesome guy. God, I love the hell out of him. And I don't say that about a lot of people, but I really do. It's just amazing. Curtis is another amazing guy. And I learned so much from you guys because I'm able to keep that open mind. I'm able to keep the dialogue open. I'm able to do that without saying, well, what are you saying? You know, what do you mean I can't call myself an addict? Or what do you mean I can't do something anymore? Because here, hold this, I'm going to show you. And that was my old mentality, and that's what kept me in that cycle of using.
I've still got that mentality because everybody out there, nobody thought I could string 2 days together freaking clean and sober. Oh yeah, watch me now.
Hmm.
I might not have been able to do it back then. And still, we've all still got our haters and doubters. They're saying, "Yeah, we're just waiting for that fall because he's getting big. It's going to be a tremendous fall. Let's see the crash at the end. Let's wait for that crash." Well, if
Yeah.
you're packing lunch, it's going to be a long, long time. Because the only time I'm hitting the ground now, knock on wood, is when they have to bury me.
Yeah.
That's the only
That's
time
what
I'm
that's what I
getting.
hope for. I was in a conversation today, and I met somebody new, and they says, "How long do you have sober?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been sober a couple of decades now." And they're like, "Oh my God, that's so amazing." I says, "It is, but you know," and at that time I had been awake maybe 16, 17 hours, and I says, "But realistically, I've only been awake for like 16, 17 hours. I've only been sober that long for today.
Yeah,
I only count today as my day. How long you been sober? Just for today,
just for
you
today.
know.
Just for today.
Um, how else how much more simpler is that?
You know, and
You know,
really, if you're out there and you want to try to get sober and you're doing it just for today, guess what? You only have to go about 18 hours in a day, and then you can sleep the rest off and wake up clean and sober again the next day. You know?
and remember what you did. I mean, there's a lot of steps in between that, and
Absolutely.
for those out there who are looking, it's so much easier to look for help now. There's so many meetings out there. It's a Google search away. The only thing you have to fear is change. And I'm here to tell you, as a sot, as the lowest human that I could possibly be, to go to prison and to get out and to recover from the mind altering and the mind and the body and the obsession of using, to have that behind me now is, I can't tell you how cool it is. It's a rocky road. It's a bumpy road. You got to face you.
Yeah.
You have to learn about you, you know. And the trip is amazing, and it took me a long time to get to where I'm at now, and I still have a long way to go. I don't know everything. I don't even know half the questions yet, but I'm meeting new people. I'm answering questions. I'm getting perspectives I never thought I would be able to even comprehend. Um, you know, and it's all because of Alcoholics Anonymous and the Big Book.
Controversial topic. Uh, relapse. Relapse is a very controversial topic. Because there's some that say that, oh, it's going to be part of my story, and prepare. What do they make? What do they say? That's a reservation, you know, uh, future reservation, basically in the A or NA book. It's a future
Yeah,
reservation
yeah.
and holding that door open just in case. Uh, for me, there's no future reservation. I do not have reservations because I know what that would lead to. And, you know, it doesn't have to be part of somebody's story. That's all I know is it doesn't have to be part of somebody's story.
Well, the
You know,
point is how sick and tired how sick and tired of you are being sick and tired. Um, you relapse for me is not an option. It never was an option. If I go out, it's for the rest of my days. I may not die that day. I may not die next week, but I will die spiritually.
spiritual.
They
Yeah,
say you go right back to where you were when you stopped using again.
right.
And I that's incomprehensible to me now. And I don't want that incomprehensible demoralization anymore. That's a big word, but it means so much. Relapse doesn't need to be a part of anybody's story, to only because if you chase after your recovery as hard as you chased after your drug of choice, you will be shocked by how quickly things will turn around for you. And
Quit making excuses
it's,
of why you can't do
yeah,
this.
quit making.
Quit saying all this bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Oh, but this, but that, but this. If you really want it bad enough, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Here's the thing. All addicts, every single one of us that are in active addiction, the people that are in active addiction, are going to quit eventually, one or two ways. one or two ways. I prefer the one where I can still live, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. And like I said, you know, it, AA, NEA, the 12 steps will help you. It helped me. I didn't need to go through therapy, but God knows if you have your past traumas, please do seek it out and do it. Um, you're only as clean as your deepest, darkest secrets. You know, you really are.
Yeah.
And once you get them out, and once they're out in the air, you can start getting better. You know, and I know with drugs, with a lot of drugs, a lot of things happen. If you use them constantly over time, your brain will adjust to that. And that's where a lot of the addiction comes, but your brain adjusts to that. And that's why there's the MAT program. That's why there are other drugs out there to help your brain balance itself again, to get right again, to eventually wean yourself off of these things, of these medications, because your brain can self-adjust and self-correct again with the help of these prescriptions, and then weaning yourself off of them again. um, but you know, obviously some people with some mental disorders has to be on them for the rest of their lives to keep their brains right.
So
And that's not saying that you're relapsing over it. If you need it, it's prescribed. You
try
need it.
the
It's
correct
keeping
way.
you stable.
You're
Yeah,
the
use
correct way.
them.
You're not overusing it. You're not hoarding it just in case,
Hmm.
because that's an addict mentality too. If you're hoarding
Sure.
your prescription for that just in case moment, that means, you know what, you're still in the mindset of an addict.
Well, let's bring this up too, real quick. About painkillers.
Mm,
We know a guy who had an amputation pretty recently.
yeah.
If you need to use them, don't fear them, right? There's reasons for them, and a lot of people say, well, I can't do that, I might fall back into it, and you might not. You know, there's
If you're
what is
aware,
it?
if you're self aware of that, you might fall into that problem. And but so
Well,
you're very self conscious on the way you use it, and you're using it under doctor's orders with it supervised.
life's a balance. Life's a balance, right? Do I get enough sleep? Do I get enough exercise? Do I get enough fun time? You know, do I get enough? Do I work enough to be able to play? To be able to relax? To be able to do the things that I want to do? There's a balance in life, right? If if you're not sleeping enough, maybe you need to see somebody on that. If you're not going out and playing enough, you know, relaxing, doing the things that you enjoy to do in your hobbies, you need to look at that. Because and so what I mean, my point was, is if you need to use pain medication to get through something and you don't trust yourself, find somebody who is trustworthy. Hey, only give these to me when they're prescribed, and then kind of slowly build yourself off of those,
We know
you know.
somebody like that right there. We know somebody like that right now. You know,
So
a few somebody's like that that have to be around their drug of choice all the time and still choose not to do it. You know, they've got a safety plan in place. They've got safety
and
plan.
that's it. You know, because we, as an alcoholic, as an addict, if one's good, two's got to be great.
And three is freaking better than
Three
two.
is
It's
fucking.
a bigger number, so why not?
So yeah, one's too many, and 1,000 will never be enough. I mean, so
I'm
yeah, if you
with
find
that.
yourself in that situation, just and you don't trust yourself, that's a good thing. That's a growing block. That's growth. You
Yeah.
know, find somebody who will, and use it. Don't abuse it, and wean yourself off of it when you think you can handle it.
And be very self-aware, you know,
Yes,
very self-aware. And like
and
you just said that one is never enough, or one's too many and thousands never enough. I really
thousands never
never
enough.
understood that saying. I do now, but for me it was thousand ain't enough, because there was just never the one. There was just never the one. It was all the way or no way for me, you know?
Well, that's exactly it, right? But here's a story. I remember when I was in my neighborhood one time, and these kids come up to me, and I was them once upon a time. These kids come up to me and says, "Hey, would you buy us a case of beer?"
Nope.
And well, now listen to me. I was still using. I
Oh,
was
okay.
still using then. And I was like, well, all right, I can do that. He goes, oh, we'll give you a couple beers. And I looked at how many of them there were, and there's 24 cans in a case, and there's like 12 of them, and they're going to give me one or two. I says, no, if I can't have it all, I don't want any of it, because I know one's too many, because then I'm going to want them all.
Taste,
Fuck you guys, I'm going to take them.
that taste.
And 1,000, I ain't done until a good day for me, Jay. If I didn't black out, it wasn't a good night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one's too many, 1,000's never enough.
In my worst addiction, I was an IV user, and if anybody, I had to do 90-cent shots to get high, you know,
Mm.
and I would have to do two of those back to back to go to sleep. Yeah, that was my worst. Those were my worst days. But then I would wake up higher than a kite still, you know. But
Wow.
I would overdose myself every single night, every 2 nights, every other night basically. I would overdose myself on meth to go to sleep.
Well, yeah, there you go. But the whole point of us being here, and the whole point is to say of the program is to say that there is hope. There is hope for the newcomer. There is hope for you out there that is still using and that is still wondering, is there an escape? Is there a way out? And there is.
There
But
is.
you have to face you to get through it,
You have
you
to
know?
get out of your own way and
Yes.
let it happen. You have to quit making excuses, quit finding everything else that's wrong with freaking trying to fix yourself, and just start doing it. Just
Right.
start.
Stop the butts.
Yeah. There's no buts. There's no
Stop the
can't.
butts.
Put in I wills or I'll. You're not even the I tries. That means saying I ams. Get those I ams in there, and yeah, get the yams in there, and freaking get out of your own way. You know.
I mean, I remember I dated this girl once, and her parents that had adopted her actually were in NA.
Mm.
And one of the prerequisites of dating her was I had to go to a meeting with these people, right?
You went to the meeting, of course.
Of course, I went to the meeting. I'm 20 something years old. My hormones are raging. Of course, I had to go to a meeting. But the one thing that struck me, it kind of planted the seed because I couldn't understand why these people were so happy. I couldn't get it. I wouldn't get it for another 12, 13, 14 years on why they were so happy not using, you know.
They didn't search
And
for it. They didn't. Something wasn't controlling their life anymore.
right. And we're in a society where alcohol, if you don't have alcohol at an occasion, it's not a good time. And of course, with the alcohol come, hey, do you do this? Off to the side, do you do this?
Hey, you
And
want
of course, that's going to make it even funner. Let's go.
to?
Hey,
Really? Oh, you mean I get a free line? Okay.
yeah, you
Yeah.
got it. I'm all over that. And so we're built on that sort of society. The problem is for a select few of us, that leads to a pretty rocky road. So, just do it. I never thought it would work for me, but I just saw so many people happy in their lives and be successful. And I still know people now who have been in the program as long as me, maybe longer, maybe not as long, who don't have what I have, but have the same life. They have kids, they have the wife, they have the house. They may not have all the stuff I have, but they're happy. Holy
Yes.
crap, they're happy. And it's amazing, and it can happen. It can happen to you, and it takes time. It takes time to build up a wrecked life. Like we were saying. We came from nothing. We decided we made the decision to throw our lives to out drugs and alcohol, and now I've decided to throw my life to being sober, to making something of my life. Um, we live this life. We only die once. Let's make the most of it.
And for me,
Take
it's
the chance. The worst that can happen is you end up happy. What?
exact. What you mean? That's it.
What?
And then once you get that happiness, once you get that peace, that happiness, that calm, you want to hold on to it. Once you experience
Exactly.
that for the first time, you're like, "Oh, I want that all the time. Where do I buy it?" You know? You don't. That's the point. You don't. You have to work for it. But once you
You
get
have to
there,
work for it.
you don't want to freaking give it up. You
It's
know?
pretty amazing. It's such a different lifestyle. And oh God, how many times have I walked home, stumbling home? There have been times when I would be I didn't graduate high school, right? I didn't make it through my sophomore year, but we used to go to parties and during the dead of winter, and the fastest way to get to this person's house was to cross over a frozen lake. Now,
Oh,
getting there was pretty easy. I can't tell you how many times, oh my God, it would take me hours to cross this fucking lake because I was so goddamn drunk. Um, the stupid shit that you just do. I hate seeing people go through it now, but I get it. I was there. I was that person, and I'm so happy I'm not that person. My gratitude each and every day is the fact that I get to wake up remembering what I did last night. My gratitude is I get to see a future. I get to see that there is hope, that there is a way out, that light at the end of the tunnel isn't a freight train anymore. You know what I'm saying? Um, there is something for me, and I'm not a religious guy. My higher power is just that, a higher power. I don't know who it is. I don't know what it is, but that's not me anymore. It's not me controlling my life. It's doing the next right thing and knowing that things are going to work out instead of thinking it's never going to work out,
right.
because if I never try, I'll never fail.
You
So
never
that means if I never try, I'll never succeed either.
succeed.
So
You never
I choose to try to set myself up for success now instead of failure,
absolutely. On that, what would you say to the person just coming off the streets or coming out of prison or in the halfway house and they're like, I'm fucking still high. I'm still gonna stay high, but they're getting that pop out all of a sudden again, like they're pulling their head out their ass, and they're thinking that this ain't for me anymore. What would you tell them?
it all starts with one day. It all starts with one step. Get your ass to a meeting. Do what you need to do to help you. The more you help yourself, the more you're going to get out of it. I mean, seek help. Just do it. I mean, it sounds dumb. It sounds lame. It sounds stupid to have to open up to other people about what's going on in my life because it's not their problem, or it's not, nobody can help me out of this situation. And that's just such crap. That's stuff you have to put past you, because you only when you're working the steps, when I'm working the steps, I only had to believe in one of two other people. That person was that person sitting across from me. The other person was my higher power. Them
Right.
are the only two people I have to believe in and put complete trust in, because I'm telling them everything. So at the end of the day, as I work through that process of working through my past, I can open up to other people now. And it sounds stupid. It sounds lame. Believe me, I know I was there. I was that guy. But given enough time, there's hope. And that light at the end of the tunnel isn't a freight train. It's freedom, and it's freedom from the bondage of self.
Yeah.
You know, if you want what we have and you're willing to go to any length to get it, you'll be amazed before you're halfway through. Plain
But
and fucking simple.
you got to want it. You've got to take
You
that
gotta.
first step and ask for help. And sometimes that
Hmm.
first one is it's the hardest one, because who really likes to ask for help when we're fucking going through shit? Who really likes to ask for help? And then the second hardest part is actually accepting the help.
Exactly. Being willing to say, "Ooh, the way I was doing that isn't right. Maybe there is another way." You
Yep.
know. And the point is too, when you're hanging around people, we've said this, but I'll emphasize it. When you're hanging around the same old people doing the same old things,
You're
you're
gonna get
gonna do
the
this.
same
It's
old
insanity doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. But if you're hanging around people who are sober and you're hanging around people who are doing the next right thing, you're gonna think to yourself, well, shit, if I do that, this
yeah.
might happen.
You
You
know,
know, so it's
you can't soar with eagles hanging around with chickens. You know, you can't be successful in anything. You can't be successful in anything hanging around unsuccessful people.
It's true. It's all about the mindset, and like you
Yeah.
said, you got to want it, and you have to want it as badly as you wanted to use, as badly as, and that might mean giving up certain things. It might mean giving up womanizing. It might mean giving up uh, going after certain happinesses in life until you can find happiness in yourself, right? Because there's no one else out there who's going to make you as happy with yourself as you are with yourself, if that makes sense.
And
I don't
there's
know.
that old saying, if you're the smartest person in your group of friends, find a new group of friends,
Hmm.
because that means they're all feeding off of you and you're not getting anything back. You
It's
know,
true. And
it,
stay open. Stay open to the fact that you may be wrong and there might be an easier way of doing something. Just do it, fucker. Just
yes,
fucking do it.
fucking
Don't be a prick. Don't be an asshole.
be an
Just
asshole,
fucking
just
do
fucking
it.
do it. And on that, Johnny, thank you for being up here. And we're going to get off this podcast that we call it now. And everybody out there, keep rocking your recovery. Thank you, Johnny.
All right. Thank you, sir.